Welcome to the Business of Teaching podcast. This is the podcast where we unpack what it really takes to run a teaching business in today's world. Now, before we begin, Riley, do you want to give everyone an update in terms of what's been going on at ArcPlatforms the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, so there's quite a bit of movement on the code base. There was a big update for language translation for the platform to be natively whatever language of new markets we head into. There was also a big update on the help center right on the platform for anybody who's using it. It's quite intuitive now. Just for instance, you're looking at a lesson on the screen, you would have a help center open to give you a guide on how to use the lesson feature. You have an invoice, you can look at a guide to use the invoice feature. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's other things going on, but those are the two major things in production.
Yeah, I mean, I had a look at the the help center, and I think it's really good. Like, some people can just have the help center open to have that like little pop out, and they can just navigate the entire site and have basically a built-in tutorial. I think it's really good. And yeah, if you're using the platform, I think you should check it out. It's just that little help icon on the bottom left-hand side of the platform. Yeah. So let's jump straight into today's topic then.
Yeah, so today we're diving into why was ArcPlatforms started. For this, I'm going to ask you a few questions and we're going to go through like that. So firstly, what inspired you to start ArcPlatforms? Was there a specific aha moment?
Yeah, and look, I think it's a really good question. Obviously, when it comes to tutoring management solutions, I don't think many people wake up in the middle of the night or just go about their day and randomly decide to build one. You have to slowly work your way into it, right? And in my case, I ran an education business that's, I think, around 7-8 years ago. Pretty much a long time at this point. And yeah, it did really well, and we got a whole load of customers and a whole lot of students. Well, at least medium size, I guess in Australian standards, maybe even large, I guess you could consider. And I faced a lot of challenges and a lot of difficulties that we had simply because the existing solutions weren't really developed for these larger companies.
What solutions, like software?
Yeah, so software solutions, and look, software is one of many, but there were a whole load of things that we wanted to do that we couldn't do with the existing software solutions. So an example that I would give is, let's say we wanted to update our payments or update a cancellation policy. A lot of the times, at the time, we had to set up like a DocuSign and then get all the parents to then agree to this new DocuSign agreement. So that's just a piece of software that would essentially email every single person that's relevant, and then they would have to go onto it and e-sign that particular document to say that they understood the policy. But we always thought, like, why couldn't there be some sort of mechanism on the learning platform that popped up the next time the student or the parent logged in, and then said, hey, you have to agree to the terms and conditions, otherwise you can't use the platform, right? Similar to how Apple has a T's and C's when you're purchasing your first iPhone. So there was just a lot of small things like that we thought could be sort of done better.
And what, like, existing solutions that just weren't providing anything like that?
Yeah, and beyond that, there's tons of different feature sort of requests that I could outline, but also in the sense that the existing solutions were quite old, right? We were building a product that was considered to be middle market, or at least middle upper market. It's a product that should, based on where we are in terms of our business, look and feel like it's a very, very sort of professional, polished, clean product. But the existing solutions just didn't have that, right? We're talking solutions that look like, they were cobbled together in the mid-2010s, right? A solution that looks 10 years old. It just looks very, very admin-y, and it just doesn't really suit what the vibe of our business was going for. And I spoke to a lot of other tutoring businesses, at the time and afterwards, and I think this is a very common occurrence. Like, a lot of other businesses, they realize, I've got an upmarket brand here. I've got a product that I personally think is, very, very up there, and we're charging expensive prices, right? They're charging, let's say 100, 200, maybe $120 an hour, right? At least Australian dollars. And then the parent logs onto that portal and it looks like it was...
It doesn't look like it's worth that much.
Exactly.
Because it is part of the service.
Yeah, exactly. And so we realized that there were a lot of other businesses that were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, close to $500,000 Australian dollars, 200, 300,000 pounds, developing their own platforms simply because the existing platform, just in terms of an aesthetic perspective, wasn't 100% there. So yeah, I mean, there's things there that we thought we could improve upon, as well as communication. So, communication as a whole in tutoring businesses is very, very specific, and there's a way that companies want to manage it, and there just really wasn't any communication or viable communication platform beyond the email that a lot of these companies were offering. And this is one of the main things that we look to improve on as well from a communication perspective.
Right, so that goes into, you just said a few things about what platforms already existed for, the tutoring industry, tutoring management, but they had not, up to scratch the aesthetic, but also more the features. So you saw there was problems, and you said the communication. So could you go more into like different problems that you saw in the industry weren't being addressed per se?
Yeah, so when it comes to communication, there's a few ways that companies currently do it right now, right? You've got the first way of communication, which is where you share the contact information of the student, tutor, and the company, right? We call it a group chat strategy. So they would put everyone into a group chat. Could be WhatsApp, could be an email, could be WeChat, could be any form of social media where you have messaging. And then everyone communicates through this group chat method. And then, the parent would message into the group chat to the student. And if the admin needed to review something or go over whatever was being said, they could then go and find that exact message through all the group chats. Now, there's problems with this, right? Namely, that when you have a group chat, you're going to have, let's say you have hundreds of students, you're going to have thousands of messages every week that are passing through. And it's very difficult for you as a company to monitor all these messages, right? At the same time, your students and tutors, they also know each other's personal contact information, right? They will know each other's email, they will know each other's Instagram handles, and
their phone numbers, personal phone numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like that, yeah.
So there's nothing really stopping your own customers and your own teachers from privately messaging and communicating, and realistically there is nothing you can really do about it. And if they did do that, unless they told you directly, you wouldn't really have a way of knowing that they did that either. They can cut you out of the transaction and the business, right? And then you've also got the risk of not only are they cutting you out of the transaction, you don't know what they're talking about, right? You might have a teacher that's taking your student out for lunch, right? Who knows? Who knows what they're saying? They could be saying all manner of thing that would impact upon the reputation of your business, right? So a lot of companies, in order to get around this, what they will do is they will do something we call a daisy chain. So you get the student who, if they want to get in touch with the tutor, they will then message the company. The company will then pass that on to the tutor. The tutor will then respond back and message the company, and then the company will then pass that information back to the student. And look, at the end of the day, like, this is a very, very sort of band-aid solution, right? You can only do it for so long, and you can only do it realistically for a certain number of students, right? If you had more than 100 students and you're doing this daisy chain for over 1,000 different messages a week, like, you're going to go crazy.
Right.
It's just not feasible at any large sense of scale. So the solution that we built, what it basically does is it turns that problem, right, of communication, and it solves it. So you would have a communication app, and then the student and tutor, they would both be given specific unique codes which they can then connect with each other, and that's where they can communicate back and forth. Now from the company side, this communication platform is fully sort of monitored. So every single message that is sent by a student and tutor, they can see if they want to, and they can search up. And if a message is considered inappropriate, if it's considered, if there's swearing detected, or if there's inappropriate language or even negative language detected, then you're going to be warned, and that's going to be flagged for the admins to review. So at the end of the day, like your admins, they don't need to read every single message, right? They don't need to pass messages back and forth anymore. They can let the communication, like the natural communication flow, and they'll only be alerted to messages should there be any sort of problem, right? And look, we've also built other sub-features in there as well, such as if there's good messages sent, right? For instance, positive feedback, or a message that displays someone wants more tutoring or wants tutoring from another subject, then you'll also be notified of that as well, so then you can close additional business opportunities. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits to a solution like this, and we're still working with customers to understand like where we can improve it, where we can make it better. And but this is the only solution out on the market thus far for a communication app. For tutoring.
So that's like probably the biggest thing in the industry that wasn't being addressed, that, other companies agreed that there was problems with the current way they do things, which, not really far off saying, companies, they cobbled together, what they thought was the easiest, or not the easiest, but the most available thing, which may be emailing and maybe texting, but that has a lot of downsides, as you were saying.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of room for improvement that the industry just wasn't addressing. So yeah, that's good. So we'll move on now. How did conversations with, you've probably talked to tutoring businesses, how did those conversations go with tutoring business owners, and how did that shape the vision of the product, the company, what we're doing?
Yeah. So throughout the existence of ArcPlatforms, or through the course of ArcPlatforms, I've talked to probably well over 100 companies, probably close to 200 companies from all over the world, right? I think 4 continents. So Australia, obviously, from Europe, we're talking the UK, continental Europe as well, like Portugal and, places like Netherlands, as well as North America. So we've talked to a bunch of American companies and Canadian companies as well, and some Asian countries, and actually Middle Eastern as well, if that counts as another continent. I'm not sure, actually. It's part of Asia, I think. But yeah, and I think throughout our conversations with all these individuals, even though they come from different backgrounds, they're teaching different subjects, they're teaching, they have different teaching styles and different expectations of their students, tutoring is still tutoring at the end of the day, and teaching is still teaching. There's still fundamental things that every single organization needs. And, they come in different shapes and sizes. We've got companies that are sort of at the dozen students level. There's companies at the thousands of students level, so maybe 3,000, 4,000 students. But, they all have their specific needs, whether it be making sure that admins can review everything, making sure the students can see all the feedback, making sure that cancellations can be, accounted for and also managed. These are things that we've all built solutions for, and a lot of the features that we've built are addressing solutions to problems that these companies sort of mention to us. So, for instance, the ability to have a substitute teacher, the ability to add students ad hoc to specific lessons, the ability to view all the live lessons that are happening right now. These are all features that we've built directly into our platform, and they're all sort of features that companies have, told us about that they would love, right? And that's the way we sort of go about running our business. It's all about being customer centric and hearing what our customers want, and then acting on that and running it forwards from there.
I remember conversations that we've had where companies, they have a moment that they're running, a small tutoring business, and then they have to become that large scale tutoring business. And at that point, they may have like enough resources and money that they go and spend, that few $100,000 to like build their platform. That is, and why do they do that? Like, could you go into that?
So that is a problem at the upper level of the market. Realistically, all the existing solutions on the market are good until you have about 1,000 students, and then you're going to need a lot of automation to run your business, right? Everything from like a CRM to being able to manage all the cancellations, like I mentioned before, in your business, and being able to execute your cancellation policy with a single click. Being able to manage and view all the lessons that are happening right here and now, and to deal with issues that pop up in lessons in real time. I mean, these are all problems that these big tutoring companies have. If you have 200 people having a lesson concurrently, right, there's only so many things that you can do if you have a very manual system. So you need to have a system that is almost smart and can sort of really tell you here and now where the main problems are in the business. And that is a solution that we've always looked to build. We've always looked to build a solution that anyone can pick up, even when they're on the low side of, when they're a low level sort of tutor, even when they're an individual tutor, they can use the solution. And then as they get more prominent, as they get more students, as they start to hire their own teachers, they can grow into the platform. And they can grow into the platform such that they don't ever need to spend the $200,000-$300,000 to build their own solution and become a software engineer and become a product manager. Because look, at the end of the day, our teachers are people who are there to teach, people who have expertise in teaching, and they're not necessarily business people, right? They're not necessarily people who are designed to build platforms, right? And that is our goal. Our goal is to use a solution, an all-in-one solution that any teacher can pick up and then use from zero to hero. Yeah. And that is the way that we've always gone about it, because especially these days, if you want to build a proper big tutoring company that is able to compete with the other competitors, you need to be more of a business person than a teacher, right? Because you need to be able to cobble together all these different platforms that don't talk to each other, right? For instance, your emailing solution, your messaging solution, your communication platform, your CRM. These are all in different solutions right now, and you have to put them all together and somehow have some sort of, API connection with software engineers and external people to help you build that together. That, we think, yeah, that's cool if you're a business person or if you're somewhere doing software, but at the end of the day, if you're an educator, if you're running an education business, you should be someone who first and foremost knows how to teach, and first and foremost knows how to really give value to the student, and we're here to take care of all that software stuff and all that running the business side of things.
Yeah, running the business in the background, is what we do best. So, moving on, we're talking about, the business of teaching, and that's what this is about. There's a lot of different industries that they teach. They have a business like personal trainers, etc. So why did you decide to specifically focus on tutoring companies rather than going broad at the start? We are going to grow into other industries, but first of all, tutoring companies. Why?
I mean, obviously, because I originally had a tutoring business, and that was a space that I knew quite well, and it was a space that I understood a lot of the problems that these guys had. Right? Instead of, like in the very beginning when we started the business, instead of having to talk to other people, we just solved our own problems, right? Like the very first features of the platform were basically just a Christmas wish list that I had, right? And then we would just work through all those features and build them out from there. And I mean, that's how it should be. And look, obviously the platform itself is very malleable, right? And it's not just relevant for tutoring or teaching businesses. Like we can go into and help people in other industries, right? Such as, if you're booking a session with your therapist, right, in a therapy company, or if you're managing some sort of childcare business where you need to manage where you need to have an understanding of who's managing and organizing the specific children in that sort of business. Like there's a lot of different verticals that our solution can work, as well as for the chat solution that we mentioned before. There's a lot of, we've had people from different industries reach out to us and say that, hey, this would really work in our industry, or this, if we sort of make some changes here, we can really make it perfect for that other industry. Like, tutoring is just where we're going to start, simply because we have the expertise and we know people in the space. But it's by no means the end. There's a lot more sort of room that we want to push the business into once the product matures and we have some proper sort of traction in the teaching space as well. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's some good answers. That's the end of my questions. So to finish off the podcast, what we're going to do is we're going to share something one of us learnt this week. And this week, we're going to ask you, what did you learn in the last week?
Yeah, so a couple of days ago, I spoke to a colleague that I had in Europe, and he was telling me about all the intricacies of running a teaching business or a tutoring business over there. And it's very interesting learning about how it works over in continental Europe, when you have a patchwork of different countries, and they all have different policies, and they all have different sales taxes, and different ways that they operate from an accounting perspective as well as a legal perspective, right? And yeah, just listening to the way that his company sort of navigated those intricacies, especially when compared to the organisation that we used to run that was in one country, Australia. They have so many different considerations that they need to do because they operate in all these different countries, right? For instance, I'll give you an example. Generally people don't like answering foreign phone numbers, right? So if someone gives you if someone calls you on a number that is not in Australia, so it's not a +61 number, let's say it's a +44 number, which is the UK, then immediately that raises red flags. And, listening to him and how he sort of got around that, especially when doing sales calls and when reaching out to customers, it is quite very interesting to sort of see how that works over in the UK, and how they have that sort of and how they navigate that like really sort of complex web of organizations, and actually gave us an idea from my side to consider maybe this is a solution that we can offer in the future where we automatically
I'm thinking, like, as an engineer, that's definitely something where you just know exactly where the student is, and then all the tax, the legal, everything that needs to be done on the business side is handled without all the admin, work required. I imagine he would have to currently do, because I doubt there's a solution that can do all that. So yeah.
So that's pretty much it for the podcast. Thank you for listening today, and please follow us on our socials and visit our website. But otherwise, we'll see you next time.